Well, good afternoon, or I guess it's going into early evening. Welcome to the Monday, September 13th County Commissioners Meeting. I apologize for being a little bit late, but with the traffic and what's going on in the city, it's sometimes a little bit hard to get around and get people here. So we'll move on. Call to order. Will the clerk please call the roll? Roll the call.
Commissioner Flaherty.
I'm present.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'm here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Davison.
Here.
Present and accounted for with the exception of Commissioner Coward.
And he has an excused absence. Will those of you that wish to join me please stand while we salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome. Glad to have people here. Glad to see that we've got some individuals to present topics. And we'll start right into the agenda. I would like a motion to approve the minutes of August 23rd, 2021.
So moved.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Sue.
No, that's fine. You can second it now.
Are there any errors or omissions that anybody wants to bring forth? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Informational reports and presentations. I'll ask Jim if he will introduce the presenters.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to ask Sheriff Joyce to come to the microphone and introduce members from Maine Pretrial Services who will be doing a presentation for you this evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. When we were discussing the jail budget, it occurred to me that we talk about Maine Pretrial Services, and I assume that everyone knows what Maine Pretrial Services are and how they help us at the jail, but you know how assumptions are made. So I suggested that Maine Pretrial come in and tell you exactly what they do on a yearly basis for us. They do help on lowering the inmate count, and you'll hear about some of the things that they do. And today I'm told it's in the high 200s of inmates that are outside being monitored that could be in the jail. And as I speak here today, we started a census of about 306, but it's court day, so hopefully the number of people at the jail physically has gone down to less than 300. So I want to introduce Elizabeth Simone, the Executive Director of Maine Pretrial, and the Deputy Director, Sean LaGrega. Actually, Sean has worked with the jail for a number of years, and he's really our person that we go to. But Elizabeth is up in Augusta, and we communicate with her as well. So, without further ado.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening, everyone. I brought some paper handouts in case our presentation didn't work, and there is enough for everyone.
Good.
Thank you very much. As the sheriff said, I'm Elizabeth Simone. I work at Maine Pretrial. Sean has been my coworker for 25 years. I started my internship in Portland in 1989 with the agency and have stuck around since then. So it is my pleasure and privilege always to work at the agency. We're a nonprofit. We have a PowerPoint for you tonight. Thank you, County Manager, for distributing those. Just to tell you a little bit about the agency, may I ask how many of you have interacted with us or intersected a little bit? I know, okay, thank you. So some of this may be redundant for you, but we'll kind of whip through this for you. So if we can advance the slide. May I trouble you? Okay, thank you so much. So just a little bit about us. We are a nonprofit agency, and historically we began as the Cumberland County Bail Project back in the 70s. There's some great legend that it was started by a couple of Black Panthers who would use a little pot of money to bail each other out of jail when they would get arrested for political activism. I have no idea if that's true. I don't know if anyone living knows if that's true. But somewhere in the 80s, they decided to professionalize and at that time incorporated as Maine Pretrial Services under the direction of an attorney. So it began as that bail fund, and over the years, we expanded to provide services through most of the state, if you can advance. The agency's vision is really to embrace innovation. We try to stay up with the times, and Sean has been certainly the driving force on that. In terms of technology, in terms of research, evidence-based practices, so that we can address needs that change and evolve in the criminal justice system. And we listed our goals on the next slide, maybe the one after the vision. Basically, our job is to provide information that is as comprehensive as possible to the court, to prosecutors and defenders about each in custody individual. So every time someone is committed to the jail on pretrial bail, our staff are assigned to go in and interview them. If they get out by bail, commissioner, that's fine, but if they're stuck, our job is to talk with them and go through a pretty serious process of a biopsychosocial interview, a research-based validated risk assessment that looks at failure to appear and risk of new criminal conduct, and mental health, substance use, trauma. And basically, the idea is whoever can get released, we provide a promise to the court that we will report back, and it's either positive or negative. Court sets conditions, people either adhere or they don't. Along the way, there's a lot of social work stuff that happens at the agency. I think that's the magic. Yeah. Court orders are important, but that individual contact is. So we're seeing literally 200 or more people a week in the community down at the office on Elm Street where Sean is most of the time.
We try and make sure that we're not over-supervising folks, so we really sort of look to our risk assessments and our psychosocial evals, our substance abuse evaluations, and mental health evaluations. Anybody that risks out, it's this high-risk, high-need level, would be seen once a week in person. And that case management session can range anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes, and it really depends on what the individual who we're supervising presents with or what they need. We work with people to get basic necessities, bus passes, hygiene packs, clothing. We try and really utilize the services within the community to ensure that individuals get what they need to thrive and to be successful while they're out in the community.
As we move through the presentation, we'll show you some of our data, but right now this is sort of just the big picture. We wrote some objectives in here, and I'm not going to bore you by reading them, but basically we operate under the construct of the Maine Bail Code. So we consider the constitutional guarantees for people and what we can do to help assure appearance and reduce risk of rearrest. There's some science in the criminal justice system, and I'm sure you're aware of that because Cumberland County has been on the cutting edge for a long time in terms of interventions for the criminal justice population, and we embrace those science principles. So some of it has to do with the risk assessment, some of it has to do with how we interact, asking open-ended questions so we don't get the yep, nope, We really want to engage people so they feel comfortable coming back to us. So. This type of presentation would not work at the office. They would be out the door, so I apologize. In terms of a next slide, we talked just a little bit about geographic scope. It has been the bedrock of our work in the state of Maine to work in Cumberland County. This is where everything started for us. Probably 25 or 30 years ago, we had a little office in Androscoggin and then a little one in York. Some researchers came to the state of Maine. They had a legislative session. They worked on something called the Correctional Alternatives Advisory Committee that reported to the legislature. And at that time, it was stated very unequivocally, Maine needs more pretrial release and supervision. At that time, many of the counties followed Cumberland County's lead and said, let's have contracts with Maine Pretrial. So right now, we work in 13 of the 16 counties. That said, we're teeny weeny. We are 51 full-time staff, and we're spread out all over the place. Cumberland really embodies sort of the largest grouping, and that is what Cumberland County pays for. We pay for a lot of staff, and we'll get to that in a little bit. If we go ahead to a slide called accreditation, I'm so proud to work with Sean because he has steered this on the national level. And if you like to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So national accreditation for pretrial services is through the National Association of Pretrial Service Agencies. And they actually started a process back in 2010 where they were really looking to professionalize and put in some standard operating procedures for pretrial agencies across the country. They had looked to Maine. They were intrigued by sort of the geographic makeup of the state in terms of how we operated. We weren't a statewide system, but we were sort of this quasi-statewide organization that worked in this mix of urban and rural counties. So they asked us if we would be willing to participate in their first pilot project for the accreditation process. We agreed, and we worked with 2 national technical assistance providers for about a year and a half. And Maine Pretrial Services was the first pretrial service agency in the country to receive national accreditation. Since then, we've been reaccredited. And we are currently working on our next reaccreditation, which of course has been pushed back due to COVID. So we're hoping that if all goes well, we will receive our national reaccreditation in 2022.
Yeah, we're good through the end of the year. We keep getting these little extension permission slips so we can proudly display the banner in the office. But it, for us, is a really big deal because they look very intensively at our policy, at our procedure, and our data. So those are things that we use to prove up nationally, and it's pretty nice to be kind of a small mom and pop shop and be operating at that level because we're working with districts like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., et cetera. And we've just always had a connection to the national organization, and because we're small enough, we are able to be nimble and kind of assert ourselves in that way. So it's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, currently there's only 7 pretrial service agencies nationally that have the marker of being a nationally accredited pretrial service organization. So we're really proud of the work that we've done as an organization.
It's all you. And the next slide has a lot to do with Sean as well. There's a national certification process so that in our industry we can be certified as professional pretrial practitioners. It's helpful because we teach our staff a lot of constitutional law, things that I think people don't take as seriously when they work in a criminal justice setting or in a correctional setting, and we have to because we have to know what the judges consider when they determine bail. So we make sure all staff are certified within the first year of their employment and they maintain it. We have many staff that have certification with honors, which is a nice distinction. So.
And the certification process happens every 3 years. So in order for our staff to maintain their certification, they have to achieve a specific number of continuing education credits or hours each year. So we really make sure that we, as an organization, are providing our staff with some of the best national training that's out there in terms of the pretrial justice movement.
Yep, yep. In the next 2 months, end of September and 2 weeks in October, we have our national conference. Full disclosure, Sean and I both serve on the National Board of Directors. I'm finishing up this year because I've been on for too long, I think 13 years. Yeah. Sean will continue, but that also gives us an avenue to the best training and trainers for our staff. So the next slide is, I think, the magic that I hope you want to hear about, and that is what is happening in Cumberland County specifically. And this, to me, also has Sean's name all over it because there are a lot of grants, and they are listed in the next few slides that are unique to Cumberland County. So I'll speak briefly to the general array of services that we have that you would see in some of the other counties. That would be pretrial release and supervision. We have a lot of deferred disposition cases, so the district attorney's office will reach out to us and say, hey, got a guy, we don't necessarily need them to be locked up, but we want some supervision. We have Title 30A, which is also called home confinement or community confinement. That's the sheriff or the sheriff's designee saying, I'd like to get this person out after they successfully serve a third of their sentence if we can provide for safety and some type of education, treatment, or employment. Post-conviction bail comes straight from the court, admin release from the court. Graduated Sanctions is a program we have where we cooperate with Maine Department of Corrections, local probation officers. If they have someone that does not need to be locked up because they are not a public safety risk, we strongly encourage them to come to us because we have more time and we have more person power, believe it or not. Even though we're teeny weeny, we don't have these staggering caseloads like probation officers do, so we work collaboratively with them on that. We have adult treatment court in Cumberland County. You've probably heard about drug court from the district attorney or others. We provide 2.5 staff to Cumberland County. That is not something that's paid for out of county. That's from the state Office of Behavioral Health. There is a veterans treatment court, and that has only been in existence in Portland about 2 years. We have staff dedicated to that as well that the state pays for. And then we get into things that are unique to Cumberland County.
Yeah, so the three programs at the bottom, the Reentry program is a federal grant-funded program where Cumberland County has been receiving money since 2013. We actually started up in 2014, and really the goal of the program was to utilize a comprehensive group of providers within the community to walk people out of the facility back to the community and provide intensive treatment, case management, medication-assisted treatment. The grant paid for psychotropic medications. The grant paid for sober housing or for treatment for these individuals. And we were fortunate enough to receive a second round of funding in 2017. Unfortunately, that funding is running out at the end of the month in 2 weeks. So what we will be doing is working to transition the clients who we currently have out into the community into our COSAP grant. And the COSAP grant is the newest grant in Cumberland County, and it's sort of an offshoot of the Reentry project, but it really sort of widens the net from severe and persistent co-occurring disorders, which was the focus of the Reentry grant, to basic substance use disorder, opiate use disorder, and stimulant disorder. So the goal, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in depth as we move on, but the goal is to work with a number of treatment providers, connect individuals coming out of the facility to treatment within 3 to 5 days of release, and to connect folks with peer support workers, recovery coaches, and so on. The gender responsive...
Excuse me, could you tell me what COSAP stands for?
Yes.
Co-occurring...
It's the co-occurring substance and stimulant, and I'm going to get the AP wrong. Comprehensive, I was totally wrong. Comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse site-based program. So a lot of money coming down from the federal government to deal with opioids, and they realize that even though that's the buzzword, people are really struggling with stimulants. So it's really focusing on those two things. If there were docs in the room, and there may be, and I don't know that, I apologize, but they would say, don't forget alcohol, because we're still obviously seeing that as a huge issue. But
I apologize, I'm just so used to calling it COSAP. So, and then the gender responsive victim defendant case management is a project where Maine Pretrial Services has collaborated with Through These Doors, which is our local domestic violence resource center. And the Macarthur Foundation has this project called the Safety and Justice Challenge, and it's a national network of jurisdictions that are charged with really looking at how do you reduce jail populations and how do you achieve pretrial justice within your communities. And Macarthur has 2 tracks of funding. The first track is sort of the big one, which is the multi-million-dollar funding packages through Macarthur, and that is the implementation funding. They have a smaller pocket of money that they invite jurisdictions to apply for, which is called innovation funding. And we have had an extremely close working relationship with Through These Doors at Maine Pretrial since the late 90s, if not earlier. And they had come to us and said, look, there's a huge population of women in our county jail who identify as survivors or victims of domestic violence. And through our Incarcerated Women's Project, we start working with these individuals. We start to develop relationships with them. And then Maine Pretrial Services comes in and bails them out and takes them out under supervision. And we lose that connection with that survivor. So let's figure out how to sort of tighten up how we do business, how we communicate. We developed formal MOUs. We changed the way we do releases. We modified our intakes so that we could continue to connect victims or survivors with the resources that they needed from through these doors out into the community. That funding is coming to an end in October 31st as well. But both organizations are committed to the ongoing work and the ongoing relationship development between the two of us.
That's the neat thing, and as we move on through these slides, we really are invested in the work and the lessons that we learn from these grant opportunities. So it's a lot of work for county government. For instance, Faye Lupi, who I'm sure you know, oversees some of these projects in collaboration with Kate Chichester from the Co-Occurring Collaborative, obviously the sheriff, and other leaders around the community. And the idea is when the funding dries up, not to come and say, can we please have more? It's what did we learn and how do we incorporate this in the work we do every day? So I have every faith that Sean is going to continue, particularly with this gender responsive DV work, because that has been your wheelhouse for almost 3 decades, I'm sure. So this next slide just talks about some things that come to benefit Cumberland County that are not paid for by Cumberland County directly. I've already mentioned the drug court and the Veterans Court, so that's just a little bit about it. Right now, the court has 32 active clients in it, but they are capable of serving up to 50. And these are people that present as high-risk, high-need individuals, high risk for relapse and recidivism, and high need for substance use disorder, mental health, co-occurring, and trauma treatments. One of the interesting things with drug court, and we've been the case management agency for drug court since they started under then District Attorney Stephanie Anderson back in 1996 with Project Exodus. Drug courts used to only focus on substance use treatment. So it was, if we can attack this, we can get this person out of the lifestyle and back on track. That works for a lot of people. There's also a group of people, as we know, that have the mental health and the substance use or the trauma involved. Okay, let's address that too. What we were missing nationally and locally was an attack on antisocial thinking. And so research and evidence has indicated you can do some really basic interventions to retrain the brain to not have criminal thinking. And the example I always use is, how fast did I drive to get here from Augusta, right? I might have criminal thinking. If there's no one on the highway, I might say, forgive me, sir, I can go a little bit more than 70, right? If there's a lot of people on the highway, forgive me, sir, I might say I can go as fast as the next guy, but no faster. And that's criminal thinking. I think any of us as humans probably operate somewhere on that range. And the folks that we tend to see in drug court are really entrenched. So we're doing what we can every week. We've got about 30 pending cases, so the ability for this court to grow is there. It's been stymied by COVID. There's not as much in terms of court dates and things like that for people, but we're there and we're ready to go. So the next one is just to recap the community collaboration. We are really proud of what Cumberland County puts together in terms of the criminal justice, the behavioral health, and the advocacy networks working together in good collaboration. And then these slides will seem repetitive. The next one talks about Project Reentry, which Sean already touched on. That's the one that's concluding this October, and it'll be converted over to the COSAP. But that has really neat partnerships. We're learning a lot about peer recovery supports, people who have walked through the same path, if you will, as others who are struggling and coming out of incarceration. People talk about recovery from substances. People are starting to finally talk about recovery from incarceration. And it is, how do we come back and go back into community? So the next one is the Building Bridges, and that is turning into COSAP.
Correct.
Okay. I'm very sorry. And then the next slide is just the details, in case you were interested about the dollars that are passing through Cumberland County. Those are listed, and the award dates and the funders. And then finally, under improving criminal justice response, this is the last one that Sean talked about with Through These Doors, and it's wrapped up in the innovation
This one's
slide.
VIP.
Oh, that's VIP. Oh my goodness. Here, go, go, go.
So this slide really speaks to the project that Faye Lupi is in charge of, and we have been fortunate that we have been part of that funding stream for the Violence Intervention Partnership since 1998. That grant pays for 0.5 of our dedicated domestic violence specialist, who is really an expert in terms of working with perpetrators of domestic violence, individuals who are charged with crimes of domestic violence and sexual assault. They also run our electronic monitoring program as well. So we, over the years, again, we've developed really close partnerships with the domestic violence community, the dedicated DV prosecutors in Cumberland County. We work really closely with the dedicated domestic violence probation officer at DOC. So we have a long history in terms of our work in the domestic violence field.
And I will say, as an outsider, I now reside in Augusta. I haven't lived in Portland for 18 years now. As an outsider, I always look to Portland for sophistication in terms of domestic violence responses. You guys are really on top of it. And the grant that we received in 1998, we expected to partner for about 2 years, and the feds keep coming in. Now, granted, the grant amount is getting smaller and smaller, and I'm sure you know that, but that's pretty impressive nationally. We do not see that. So the next slide talks just a little bit about the Macarthur Innovation that Sean works on. And again, that was an idea that Sean and someone from Through These Doors came up with, and it was, what can we do to help people in a better way together? So we're very proud of that as well.
One additional piece that I'll just mention about the Macarthur grant is it's really afforded Cumberland County's justice system some really unique opportunities over the last 3 years. We were invited to take part in a think tank, basically, with the Center for Court Innovation to look at different types of programming within the justice system, whether it be for OUI courts, domestic violence courts, and drug courts. There was a team from Cumberland County that included a judge, 2 ADAs, a victim's advocate from Through These Doors, and Maine Pretrial Services that spent 3 days down in Virginia. We're currently participating in another project through Macarthur that is myself, District Attorney Sarbeck, Chris Arbor from the Department of Corrections, Kate Chichester, and the lead clinician for Maine Behavioral Health. And it's really looking at ways that justice systems can really collaborate and work with individuals with co-occurring disorders and address really critical needs like homelessness and self-care. We're about 3 months through that project. We anticipate that we'll wrap that up in December of this year.
Thank you. The next slide is specific to the Portland office. And so we have an office coordinator. She doubles as a drug court case manager. We give a small stipend if people wish to apply to help coordinate the flow of cases. That comes out of our admin line. I mentioned adult drug treatment court, veterans court. In terms of Cumberland funding, grant funded, the reintegration, reentry specialist, the domestic violence, sexual assault specialist. Half of that person is paid for in our county budget, and then half from the grant. We have a co-occurring treatment case manager. They really are good at helping people get residential placements, beds when they need to go bed to bed from the jail to somewhere safely. That's paid for out of our funding from Cumberland County. We have 2 general case managers paid for out of Cumberland County funding. And we have a ton of Sean's time as the deputy director. Our finance director is very helpful in terms of some of the grant management and working with county in that regard, so they are there as well. And then finally, it may be so small you can't see it, but I did a full copy on the back page of every section except the last that was handed out that didn't have a business card on it. So this is what our budget looks like. We present this to the sheriff. There's room for, you know, back and forth if needed, but last year, we asked for 0% increase because we had no idea what was going to happen during the pandemic, so we just held steady. This year, we respectfully requested a 3% increase. Our total request to the county is $316,248, and that is for basically 4 full-time people plus administration. I'm not sure if I'm going on too long. I have a tendency to do that. The last slides we have are related to data, and we basically just give you a quick overview of how we screen people and then what it looks like in terms of jail bed days that are avoided. Those are the tools that we use to screen people. So we have we call a stacking process that unfolds as we work with someone. So the first 2 tools are used in lockup, and then the other tools cascade as we meet with that person in the community once they're on our caseload. Unless there's a risk of suicide or domestic violence, those tools are administered during lockup. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so jail screenings. 2019, great year. We're in the jail 5 days a week, screening every individual or as many individuals as possible prior to initial appearance in court that afternoon. Fairly solid number for our staff. 2020, we dropped from 1705 to 559. Dramatic decrease. The jail was really fantastic during 2020 and in 2021 of helping to accommodate to get individuals screened. 2021, we were back in the facility 5 days a week, and we had seen a jump from this 352 number. As of August 1st, we had screened about 220 defendants from the court, and as of this past week, that number had jumped to almost 400 just within a 30-day period, and that is the result of having full access back to the facility. So we're able to process cases a lot quicker. We're able to show up in court that afternoon, ready to release somebody with the paperwork that the court requires. When we don't have that ability to do that, it sort of slows the process down by 2 or 3 days, and that can have a critical impact on an individual's life, their home circumstances, their employment, and so on. So,
yeah, there's a pretty good amount of national research, some of it using our data, even though we're a small organization, that shows that anything in addition to 24 hours in lockup can affect long-term recidivism. Once you get to 48 and 72 hours, the numbers jump. So we like to get in as quickly as we can. That is our charge.
we talked a little bit about court appearances. We're in arraignments Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, probation hearings, motion hearings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and at the request any time of a judge, a prosecutor, or defense counsel.
The next slide is just our supervision requirements. So depending on the risk and the need, people can call us every day, come in once a week in person. If the court orders random drug, alcohol testing, we do that on site. We do employment verifications, connection with treatment. There is electronic monitoring for a limited group. And then we have SCRAM, which is a continuous alcohol monitoring program that can either be attached to the ankle or using a smartphone, and you blow into it, it has facial recognition, a straw. We're also using a little bit of a new technology called Reconnect, which is smartphone application as well, very inexpensive, looks promising. That helps us call people in to test, and it helps us send push notifications. I say this like I know what I'm doing. He usually has to help me with my phone when I come down to Portland. Can you look at this? But we're able to push stuff out so everybody gets the same message and knows, like, today's not a great day to come in, or everybody needs to come in today. So depending on what's happening in COVID, that's been really helpful. The next slide talks about how we structure our data. And we have been lucky to partner with NIC for the last 20 years, the National Institute of Corrections. they actually go to the National Pretrial Group, which we serve on, and say, what do we need to look at in terms of data? So we created a lexicon of what people should be measuring nationally, and we report on those factors. Sean has created a web system. You can talk about that.
Yeah, it's an online web portal where staff can input the necessary data that we need to do our routine statistical analysis. Pretty bare bones, built in-house, but it works. We have the ability to run error reports. We have the ability to run reports on different variables that either we are committed to reporting out on by way of measuring what matters, or often if there's other stakeholders that want to know just, how many people have you supervised that identify as combat veterans? So we can go in and pull that data as well.
That's helpful with grant applications, right? Because we can say, we're doing enough of this, so you should pay for us to do more, or we're not doing enough, we need help with this. The next slide looks at clients served, and 2020, as we all know, is not a good year for business. It was very hard to get people out. I think you know that there was a call to have less people booked into the jail. Courts basically went to a grinding halt, so less people were processed out. There's a huge backlog of cases. With that said, we served 553 people, which is sort of on average with other years in Cumberland County. So a little bit lower for us. And the hard part for us in 2020 and carried into 2021 is that even though our statistics for the average length of supervision for a pretrial defendant has been 92 days, literally for more than 2 decades, no matter how we run the data, that's how long people tend to go back to court on average in about 3 months. Well, people have been with us for over a year now instead. So they're not getting returned to court. We're seeing people fatigue. They don't want to come in. Suddenly they're using again. They white knuckled it for a while, things like that. So it's been a very difficult year. The next slide, I think, is a positive, and this is bed days avoided. Back in the day, I'm thinking this was when Mark Dion was the sheriff, we used to talk about bed days saved. There's no guarantee that if Maine Pretrial came in and didn't bail someone out that they would not have gotten out, but the likelihood is the intervention was needed. Now we just say avoided. So we have last year 131,000 bed days avoided. That's how long people stayed with us during the course of the year. As you can see, most of them are pretrial. The next slide is what we call success or revocation. This is kind of a, I think it's a trickier slide. You take the total N, which is 553. The column that says number by court revocation is important because we have more people that we tell the court this person has violated than the court takes action on. So for instance, if I took this side of the table, say you all tested positive, the court might say, you're going back in custody, Maine Pretrial, will you continue with him? And him, we don't care. It wasn't that serious of a case. No offense, it's weird. But it's how it is. It's what's happening and what can they do to do least restrictive. So a lot of people, even though we have policy, we have to report every violation that day. If it's overnight, next business day, in writing to the DA, defense attorney, and the court. There's not a lot of action taken. That's true even outside of COVID. Yeah. So we have these dynamite numbers where a very small number of people are revoked. More people violate than that. So we are talking right now, Sean and I, about setting up 2 more quadrants in this report style so that we can look at the total N of violations. Because if you go down on the left axis, positive drug screens, out of 553 people, only 5 people tested positive. That's not what it means. A ton of people tested positive. Those 5, the court said, alley-oop, you're back in. So that's kind of great to measure because you start to look at judicial conduct, not to overstep our bounds, but we're fascinated by judicial decision-making. And that's showing some really good movement compared to years in the past where everybody got locked up if they were using. So.
And I'll just say 2 quick things about this. New criminal conducts are non-negotiable. Those are automatically motions to revoke bail, taken back into custody. Failure to appear warrants are issued, but you can see we have an extremely low failure to appear rate. It's really around the positive drug screens is where we, because of the relationships we have with our other justice system partners, we can call and say, hey, look, so-and-so tested positive. Again, it's the second time this month. We're going to ramp up treatment. I'm working with the treatment provider. Do you want a formal motion to revoke, and do you want to move this person through the system with a formal violation, or do we want to wait and see how things go over the next couple of weeks? And 8 times out of 10, the prosecutor's office is saying, let's check back in 3 weeks. Let me know how things are going, but get me a memo so I have documentation of it, which is really a shift from years past. So I think that type of data is really important for us.
Yep, so we'll continue to work on that. If you have any questions, we're happy to try to answer them, and we thank you for your time.
Does anybody have questions of them? No?
No, I know.
I have one from the very beginning. What's the hesitancy of the other 3 counties from not getting into the program?
Which?
The hesitancy from the other counties that don't have pretrial service.
Oh my goodness gracious, that's a good question. So I can't speak for those counties. When I do talk to stakeholders in those counties, they say, we don't have a crowding problem, or we have our own program. Sometimes having your own program means nobody gets out. We got a call from, well, twice in 1 week from one of those counties saying, we have a guy, we have our own program, but can you get him out of our jail? So we said, yeah, when we're done with our other work, we'll get to it this week. So that's a great question. Thank you.
All right.
I'm all set. Well, thank you very much. That was very good.
Thank
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Yep. Thank you.
Is that really right, 131,000?
Bad
You
nights?
translate that per day charge?
Yeah, it's an insane number.
Yes, it is. It's 18 million.
The first few times that they said it to me, I sort of did a double take, and yep, it's real.
What was your question? I didn't hear it.
Well, what they indicated is that in 2020, they saved 131,000 bed days.
Oh.
And at $150, $140 a day, you're around $18 million.
Glad you didn't say that when they were in the room. They would have increased their prices more.
Well, they'll know now it's live.
Yeah, it's live, yeah. All right. Jim, the CCRC staff report?
Yes, Melinda, Director at CCRCC, has submitted a staff report for Commissioners' review. No action is needed by the Commissioners.
All right, then we'll move on here. Comments from the public. The chair will entertain comments at this time from anybody that's here, of a limit of 3 minutes. Seeing nobody from the public, I would then indicate that that portion is closed. The only other thing I have is, Travis, has there been any comments submitted to staff that you know about?
There's not.
All right, that part of the agenda is taken care of. Consent agenda approvals. Will the clerk please read the items?
So I'll read them without the 2021 in front of them. Item 066, award a bid to Haskell and Hall for concrete wall repair within the exercise yards at the jail. Item 067, award a bid to AD&W of Westbrook, Maine to replace a portion of the jail cell windows. Item 068, Sheriff's Office commissions for July and August 2021. Item 069, approval of third amendment to Armor Correctional Health Services Agreement, funding supplemented to State of Maine MAP grant and from the Second Chance grant. Item 070, approval of contract renewal with Dynamic Medical Works LLC and correctional health contract monitoring and consulting services.
Thank
Passage.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Sue. You can do this.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Do any of the commissioners wish to remove any item from the consent agenda and move it to new business? Seeing none, then I will call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda has passed. New business. Item 21071, authorize the county manager to submit the county's 2021 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, CAPER, to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Jim, can I have an explanation? Well, wait a minute. First, may I have a motion to accept this item?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Jim, may I have an explanation of this so that we can...
Sure. Thank you. The CDBG office is required each year to submit a CAPER. A CAPER is pretty much a report on how the money was spent, giving the accomplishments and the benefit that was achieved through the expenditure of CDBG funds. This evening, Kristen Stiles is here from the CDBG office. She has submitted a memo in your packet, but she came to me this afternoon, all excited that there was so many good projects this year that was funded through CDBG. She wanted to create a slideshow and show you the pictures of them. So I'm going to pass the mic off to Kristen for her to go through her slideshow and talk about the great projects that the CDBG office has funded over the past year. Kristen, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Like Jim said, we had a very busy year in 2020. As you know, our office used to come to you twice a year, and now we're here monthly, getting some new allocation of funds to go through. So what I wanted to do, in addition to our regular report, you can see that we actually have 3 pages of projects that we have completed or are in progress this year at 78 projects. And almost all of these 78, except for ones like sewer water separation, have really heartfelt, great stories about them. And I could be here until midnight telling you all of these great stories, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about them. But I just wanted to give some quick highlights of ones that kind of stood out or kind of could go together in the same category. Before doing that, I wanted to give a quick background of just what our office does. Our community development office, we have our community development block grant, and that includes all of Cumberland County except for the city of Portland and Brunswick. Within that allocation that we get from HUD, we do a set aside for Bridgeton and a set aside for South Portland. That started at the beginning before the projects are selected, so each place knows how much money they have. So in 2020, the county had just under $1 million at $900,000. South Portland was $444,000, and Bridgeton was $200,000. In addition to that, we have our home partnership program. This is with the city of Portland and also includes Brunswick as part of our county piece of it. And that is separated out with the county receiving about $400,000 in 2020 and the city of Portland receiving $540,000. And if you're looking at that going, how come the county is getting way more than, or the city is getting way more than the county? Without the city joining with us, we would receive nothing. So we are very grateful that we're in this and getting as much as we are from them. This year, for 2020, we also received 2 rounds of COVID relief funding, and this is specifically for the prevention of, preparation for, and response to the coronavirus. Through that, there was 3 rounds. In 2 of the rounds, we received just about $2 million. So total, with just CDBG and CDBG CV funds, it was $3.6 million that we had to hand out last year. Hence why there's 78 projects on that list that don't include anything related to home. If we move on to the next slide, Jim. So a few of our highlights here. I just wanted to kind of put things into a big category of how much money we managed to get not only allocated to a project, but get out the door. So last year with CDBG and CV, we got $2.8 million out the door, and I'm expecting a lot more by October when our first quarter is coming in, because a lot of things, since our third round of COVID funds didn't actually get approved until December, it took a while for that to get started, so their first quarter reports are only now coming into us. And so a lot of projects were kind of summer-based programs or things that were going to help kids during the summertime. So that's part of why that number is not as high as the 3.6 million. And then other projects kind of just take a while to get off the ground and running, such as infrastructure projects. For that, a few highlights for us. We had 274 households that received rental assistance and utility assistance through us last year. Part of the reason that number is not higher is because this was specifically for people that could not qualify for the state program to receive rental assistance through the state program. We shut ours down except for a small pot of money as soon as the state opened up the statewide rental assistance program, just so that we weren't overlapping and potentially causing any criminal activity there. We had 27 kids that were helped with after-school programs and summer camp scholarships. This does not include the 2021 summer camps. This was last year's summer camps or after-school or home COVID days. We delivered 5,923 boxes of food or meals that were delivered through Meals on Wheels and various programs to people in the community. The focus of the majority of those were people that were directly impacted by COVID, that mainly seniors not able to leave their homes to go to food pantries to get food in order to keep them safe over the past year. We have ordered, I say ordered, 3 utility vans to help purchase food. One of them was ordered in September of last year and is still not arrived yet. All 3 are on back order and we're waiting for those to arrive. Luckily, all 3, even without COVID, are still going to be able to help deliver food to people who need food delivered to them, as well as help transport the food from places like Portland, Wayside Foods, or Good Shepherd out to the smaller food pantries. We helped 298 victims of domestic violence through shelter, clothing, and rental assistance. When they were talking about the Project Reentry, part of, I can't remember if it's 73 or 78 of those 289 were clients of that Project Reentry program as well. So what this paid for was things like actual shelter bed or a hotel room or food or hygiene products that their program can't pay for. But it does qualify under ours, so we were able to help kind of team up there and pay for that. Through the Intercultural Community Center, there are 53 families that were helped with New American families that received assistance. They did everything under the sun for these families, from helping their kids log on to do homework, to helping them get COVID vaccines, running a clinic, to helping them find housing, helping them navigate online school and communicate with the schools when language was a barrier. They really helped these families a lot. And then we had 29 small businesses that were helped through our business assistance program, and then 44 home repair programs that happen across the county as well. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry. Talking too fast. All right, if we wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide. I just have a few quick photos. Yes. Oh, no, I'm all right. I promise these ones will go quite quick. A few other highlights that we have, other than these ones, which I did not have any kind of pictures for, is we purchased an emergency shelter for the EMA. This shelter is able to be deployed wherever there is a COVID outbreak site or whatever comes along next for us. So we hope to be able to use this in the future whenever is needed. So it's ready to be set up as an emergency shelter anywhere. Next. NAMI had a mental health training program. They're running a whole bunch of these for us. As we all know, mental health skyrocketed during COVID, and it didn't just affect one set of the population, it affected the entire population. So they're running a whole set of mental health and first aid training programs to help people spot folks that are really struggling with mental health or folks that might be suicidal, helping people know the signs to look for so that they can help get that person help. At Red Bank in South Portland, there is a stream, sometimes also known as STEAM. It's, I'm going to get it wrong, science, technology, I don't remember what the R is, something, and math is the, I need someone with a school-aged kid to figure out what the stream is, but it's all of those technology, robotics, kind of fun stuff that happens in schools. It tends to happen in more affluent schools than lower performing schools. So what they decided to do was have these events at areas where the kids don't have as many opportunities to participate in like a robotics competition. So they have been bringing these to Red Bank, holding events, providing food, making them free, making them very accessible to try and get as many kids as involved in STREAM activities. A few of our highlights, just because I love our housing projects so much. This is Thornton Heights in South Portland, 611 South Portland. It was a church that was condemned. The entire site needed EPA remediation. I believe almost 10 feet down they had to go in order to get out all of the asbestos and lead that had soaked into the ground. CDBG helped pay for the cleaning and clearing of that site so that this 42-unit building could be built on top of it that will have commercial space down at the bottom. On West End Street, this is one of our favorite projects right now. This street has just completely been transformed. What you see on the left is what it used to look like, and what you see on the right is it currently under construction. So what CDBG paid for was the entire road repair, the streetscaping of putting in a sidewalk, putting in pedestrian safety, and improving the street, in addition to home funds paying for the 2 Avesta housing projects that are going there. Between the 2 Avesta housing projects, it's a total of 116 new units of affordable housing, family housing that is being built there, as well as a few market rate units and commercial and community spaces along on the first floor. This whole area, if you ever have a chance to go down Harnois Drive, I think it is, it goes back into a whole little neighborhood of affordable housing buildings that Home Funds have done, I think just about every one of them back there. It is absolutely gorgeous, it's peaceful, they've put in trails. This is one of the projects that we did with our 2018 funds that is now complete now, was completed, I believe, in the fall. And there is one across the parking lot that is currently under construction. But the area is just gorgeous. I highly suggest going there. If you know where Kohl's is in Westbrook, just right behind Kohl's. It's great back there. And that's it. That was some of our highlights. I could go on and on about the amount of fabulous work our social service providers and our towns have done this past year. Everyone has, everybody was able to just step up and do so much great work with the extra funding that we got. And we only had one project that canceled. The one that canceled was supposed to take place in the jail, and obviously that was not able to happen.
Thank you, Kirsten. Has anybody got questions of Kirsten?
Just a quick question. Kristen, the 29 small businesses that were assisted, can you just give us a flavor about a couple examples of how that assistance helped the small businesses?
Sure. So we had 2 programs. Well, we had technically 4 programs, but 2 types of programs. We had job creation programs and microenterprise assistance programs. With that, a small portion of the funds were set aside just for South Portland for microenterprise assistance and a small portion for job creation. All 4 of those programs were run by GPCOG. It was a learning experience for everybody involved because they have not run this type of program before. We try to kind of copy the program that the city of Portland operates, but Nell Hannick at the city of Portland has been running it for years. She has it down to a science, and it really is a lot of work. The business is to qualify as a microenterprise, it needed to have fewer than 5 employees, and the owner of the business needed to qualify as low or moderate income and live within Cumberland County outside of the city of Portland. For the job creation program, it was for job creation or job retention. So during COVID, if you needed an extra bit of money to kind of help get through, to keep an employee employed, you could apply for this assistance. The employee needed to qualify as low or moderate income and live within Cumberland County outside of Portland and Brunswick. And the business needed to be not a large, I don't remember what the number we stopped at, maybe it was 200 or 100 employees. You know, we were looking for small businesses is how we phrased it to try and help them. What ended up happening was the job creation is, through HUD, is just a lot more difficult to meet all of the qualifications for. So that program was not as successful as the Microenterprise Assistance Program. And GPCOG ended up spending much more on the microenterprise assistance, and we ended up moving funds around in order to make that happen there.
Thank you. Any further questions of Kirsten? Thank you very much. That was very informative. I really appreciate you bringing that before the commission and the public.
Thank you. And I'm sure that I'm going to come up with 15 more pictures that I would like to add later this evening.
Is there any further discussion on authorizing, on authorizing the manager to submit the county's CAPER project? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Item 21072, presentation of the county manager's 2021 proposed budget.
Great, thank you. It's that time of year again, and the first Monday of September is, by charter, is when the county manager needs to present the manager's proposed budget. Just to give you a little bit of backdrop, as we normally do, the staff here at the county has been budgeting since, I would say, since March. As the commissioners are aware, we have 2 budgets out of 3 that are on this fiscal year, July to June rotation, as we have the general fund budget from January to December. When we get done with the jail and the cross-insurance arena budget in preparation for a July 1st date, we got about 30 days left, and we jump right into creating the general fund budget. Staff has been working on the general fund budget right up until Friday afternoon of last week to button it all up and to get it to present this evening to you all. So getting into the 2022 budget, I thought there would be good to point out some common themes in this budget. I should point out that there are not a lot of thrills and frills in this budget. This budget builds off them and tries to build back from what we lost during the current year, 2021 budget. As we all know, we really sharpened the pencil last year, and a lot of cuts were made to bring this budget into a low percentage for a low impact for the taxpayers of Cumberland County. This 2022 budget starts building us out of that cutting process that we had in 2021. However, we also have these common themes. Salaries, I think we can all agree, we all know and have talked a lot about over the last 6 months. Salaries are going up. The market is dictating higher salaries. We are constantly trying to get out there and do salary surveys on our employees in different sectors. And this budget reflects a lot of increases that we've had to do to bring people in the market in order to retain our workforce here. It also includes, we've brought in a lot of individuals, and those individuals who we have brought in over the last year, year and a half, have come in higher than those who have left us. So there is a significant increase in salaries across the board. Health insurance was one that kind of took us by surprise this year, but what we have noticed that over the last year is that those individuals who may have been getting paid the stipend for not taking health insurance have gone a different direction, and they are now either taking one of the 3 levels of health insurance that we provide. And we provide single coverage, we provide single with dependent, and we provide family. And so we're seeing a lot more employees not getting that weekly stipend, but now taking one of the 3 levels of health insurance that we provide. We also see employees going from maybe a single or a single with dependent up to a family. So we see a lot of movement internal into the health insurance program. So that has been something that's been a surprise to us, and as we've worked through the different departments, no department is immune from an increase in health insurance. And so that's one area that we wanted to touch upon up front and let you guys know that we're experiencing that type of increase. The next item is the tax stabilization. We first introduced that fund in the 2021 budget. Last year, we brought to you, in order to reduce the tax rate impact of the budget, using $400,000 of the year-end surplus that we would accrue. Again, we are looking to bring additional money into that fund. You'll see that we were proposing to bring $300,000. It's still very early for us to really forecast or project what we're going to end the year with, but we feel comfortable that a $300,000 insertion into this stabilization fund will be able to be met. So we'll have a slide a little bit later showing how that's going to work. And then lastly, we wanted to point out ARPA. ARPA has really allowed us to do a couple of new things here in the county and also cover some significant capital improvements that is going to provide short-term and long-term impacts, not only to our facilities and facilities management, but also to the tax rate. There is going to be a significant dollar amount that we're not going to have to put on the tax rolls over the next 5 years, because we're able to pay for it over the next 5 years using ARPA funds. And so it is significant, and it's there's a lot of projects, and you're well aware of them, that are being slated to be funded, and they're good projects, and they're projects that are going to really enhance our facilities to fight off any future pandemics that we have coming down the road. So getting into the budget itself, for those who are watching at home, again, I want to make mention that the county general fund is on a January to December calendar year budget, as the jail and the cross insurance arena are on a July to June budget year. But for the total expenditures, for the 3 cost centers, we're looking at an increase of just over $1.6 million, or 3.41%. Once you start factoring into the enterprise funds, which are the various contracts that we have out there with municipalities, whether it's for assessing services or sheriff's deputy, to name just a few, that's $1,663,000 of increase. We're going to add another $122,000 increase in grants, for a total expenditure increase of $3,395,000. That's 5.66% increase in the expenditures. Getting into the jail budget. The jail budget, as the commissioners are aware, back in June we presented the jail budget to you. We are right at the 4%. That's required by state statute. And I won't go down through, but you can see that state funding increase. Federal border, a slight increase, but we're seeing some negative numbers in there too for revenues out of county borders and other revenues. Total jail revenues are up $370,000, while expenses are up $937,000, netting out for jail's needs from taxes of $567,887. The cross-insurance arena is going with a budget of $3,151,000. That's a decrease of just under $280,000 from the previous year, or a negative 8.15% decrease. Now we factor those three cost centers in with the county general fund, and total needs from taxes for the proposed budget is just over $1.3 million, a percentage increase of 3.87%. Our debt capital and tax anticipation note is at a negative $17,000 in totality, or a negative 1.25% increase. I should make mention that we did feel as though we needed to increase our TAN because interest rates are going up, and so we've had to go from $161,000 to $191,000 on that. Once again, I think there needs to be a discussion in the coming weeks, months during the budget process of a timetable on when we bring our general fund budget into line with the cross-insurance arena and jail budget and get it on a fiscal year. Because that $191,000 is one line item we would save by switching up our budget year for the general fund. So just wanted to highlight that's a discussion that we should be having over the next couple of months. Human services and grants. These are the same grants that we funded in 2021, and I'm proposing flat funding all of them, so $0 increase. We're proposing a bond for next summer. Two items on that bond. The roof of the jail that we have postponed for 2 or 3 years now, on the belief that we were okay, but the facilities is telling us now that we should probably start pre-planning for that jail roof. And so we're proposing putting the $1.3 million into a bond. And then another $50,000 worth of window replacement. The commissioners just approved window replacement down at the jail. I think that will come up with 42 windows that will be replaced over the next number of months. This will begin a second phase of the next 40 to 50 windows at the jail. So we're proposing to bond just over $1.3 million for those two items. Here's the tax stabilization reserve. If I could bring you through this, the first column, of course, is the budget year. Second column is what we worked through last year, in that we put $400,000 in 2021. We used $200,000 of that to reduce the tax rate. This year, we were slated to use $150,000 to reduce the tax rate. And then next year, we would go down to $50,000. What we're proposing is to insert another $300,000 into this tax rate stabilization plan, which would essentially bump up the 2022 usage up to $200,000 by inserting $50,000 into it. In 2023, we would add another $100,000 so that it would be $150,000 in totality. 2024, we would add $100,000, and then 2025, we would add $50,000. So as you can see on the far right column, we're slowly weaning ourselves off from the tax stabilization by using $200,000, $150,000, $100,000, $50,000, so that any one year we're dropping $50,000, and we feel as though that's a manageable number that's not going to present a huge barrier for us to get off this after 2025. And that ends my presentation. I'm here, Alex is here to answer any questions that the commissioners may have on this.
Well, we haven't got a motion. Ultimately want a motion to accept this?
Accept it and to remand it to the Finance Committee.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Any discussion? No discussion. Jim?
I would ask that, and we covered this a little bit last year, and last year was a very challenging year. We all remember that. I'm actually a little surprised that we're doing so well, and Alex has got he's got more tricks up his sleeve than a lot of people in the finance business. So that's very commendable, actually, that we've managed to this point. Jim, you might have had something to do with that too, huh?
Nothing.
But I would like, I hope people will pay attention again to, we had kind of a rough discussion last year about the Cumberland County Extension Service, and just keeping an eye on what they're doing and whether we think that has merit that we've overlooked over the years. So that's all.
Any other commissioner got a comment? I'm still baffled by this. We're doing jail windows, for example. We're doing jail windows in tranches. And why we're not doing the whole thing and bonding it, because we know that the cost of capital will never be any lower.
Well, the reason why we went with a second tranche is I'm getting word from the Facilities Department that the money that you allocated this evening in the consent calendar, I believe that item was on, is taking care of the 42 worst windows. Not all the windows have issues down there. And the windows, there are some windows that are facing the sun for the majority of the day. They've started yellowing between the panes of glass. And there's, through that film that's deteriorating between the panes of glass, there's a sulfur smell that's coming out of those windows. And so the Facilities Department feels as though they're going to be able to capture the bulk of the worst windows. We went to the second tranche on the belief that, okay, maybe there's a few windows kind of like the next phase of worst windows, but what I'm getting from facilities is that the entire jail doesn't need all new windows. It's just a certain number of windows that need to be replaced. There's over 300 windows in that jail, and so it's some significant money to replace them all.
Well, I hear you, but I guess my question really is, and I should be more specific, is why aren't we replacing all the ones that need to be replaced?
Well, from what I get from the facilities, this next $50,000 would be capturing the ones that need to be replaced.
Gotcha. Let's see. And you're gonna, we should talk about the fiscal year change. Do you want to do it now?
I don't think it's a topic for this evening, but it's something that, you know, over the next 2 months, we should have that discussion to set the timetable.
If there's no further discussion?
I would just say commendable job to Alex and Jim and all the staff in these very difficult financial times coming in with a budget like this. It's not our SCARE budget, but with a percentage increase lower than 4% was remarkable. So we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, those in favor of accepting the budget as proposed?
Aye.
Those opposed. Those four, aye. Those against? Seeing none, it's passed. Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah. Item 20073, appointment of the Finance Committee. And to the public, the commissioners will go into an executive session with accordance to MRS 405-6-A to discuss these appointments. And I ask you to please bear with us. Well, I'm guessing, but it may take somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes, and then when we come out, we will be making a vote. So with that, I ask for a motion to go into an executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
No.
Those opposed? I declare we're in an executive session. Jim, can you make sure that we're
Yes.
executive session? Second. Those in favor? Aye. None opposed? Sorry about that, didn't have my mic on. As I said, we'd probably come out and we'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to accept the slate of candidates for the Finance Committee's Budget Committee. And I'd also like to make sure that people understand that those meetings will probably be remote meetings. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to take 10 seconds and read who is on that slate, just for the thousands that are watching at home?
Sure. District 1, Lee Pratt from the town of Gorham. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Paul Tuareg, the town of Bridgeton. District 2, Dustin Ward of New Gloucester. District 3, Bob Vale of the town of Cumberland. District 4, Jocelyn Layton of the city of South Portland. And District 5, Mayor Kate Snyder of the city of Portland. Thank you. Do we want to entertain a motion for a policy a motion on a vaccination program? I'd like the,
If we could just hold that, I think that would probably be best under 075, which is the first item under the ARPA funding
okay.
items.
Okay.
Our next item is the state of emergency.
Item 21. That's when I wanted, 20 minutes to come out of the executive session.
Well, we made it.
We made it, yeah. Let's see, item 21074, and I'd like to amend this motion as it's on the paper here. So I'm going to make it change it in what I'll ask for. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve a county state of emergency which may expire on or before December 31st.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say again, just because we've had this conversation several times in the last year and a half or more, but we again are facing a pretty unhappy situation. Even though Cumberland County remains one of the safest, if not the safest, depending on how things are going day to day all across the country, places in the United States. But anyone with a fourth grade understanding of biology knows that for as long as this persists, the opportunity for additional variants and mutations is present, and it's a non-zero probability every moment of every day. So it's still a dangerous situation all across our country and across the world. So it's regrettable that we're going to have another state of emergency. We'd kind of let that lapse a few months ago, but it's very much in order, I think, at this point.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Still under new business, but this next grouping we're going to be talking about is mainly affects the ARPA funds, the American Recovery Program Act from the federal government. And the first item in there is 21075. Authorize the county manager to proceed with eligible county ARPA projects. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. This item is, you may consider it overkill, but I want to at least cover all of our bases. This list that I have put in your packets this evening, you've probably seen every month for the last 3 months, and twice during the month of August when we were working through the performance plan. However, it's some good-sized money, it's good-sized projects, and I think it would be beneficial to keep this fresh in everyone's mind and to seek an approval to move forward with these projects that's independent from the other items that we've been addressing over the last couple of months. So that's why I put it back on the agenda for consideration by the commissioners and a vote, so that we could start moving in many different directions to start scheduling these projects. As the commissioners know, we have a time frame. This is not open-ended for the next 10 years to do. We have to allocate the money by 2024 and spend it by 2026. So, and we got some good-sized projects that's going to keep our facilities department hopping here. But I'd like to take 2 seconds and just go down through to list the type of projects that we have and where they're going to be located. The first is the establishment of the county's public health office, and today I'm happy to announce that just this afternoon I have hired a public health manager. Liz Blackwell Moore will be our new public health manager for Cumberland County, and she is very excited to join the ranks in our team here at Cumberland County. That will be a position that will be covered by ARPA funds for the first 3 years of the program. We have down at the jail the implementation of a negative pressure cell and the purchase of PPE and COVID mitigation practices down there. We have countywide PPE equipment. We have covering county inmate medical costs from last year that exceeded budget. We have county jail medical wing, adding on a 6,000 square foot medical wing to the existing jail. We have jail HVAC duct cleaning, which was a capital improvement item last year but was cut at the last minute during budget times. We have Courthouse Air Handler 1 here in this building. We have an expansion of the dispatch or communication space, as well as new consoles that are going to be more appropriate space between dispatchers for separation. We have a generator at the Cross Insurance Arena, one area that we fell we lacked on when we were in discussions with the hospitals about creating an alternative care site at the Cross Insurance Arena was backup power. And it was not an easy fix, and it was a very expensive fix. And we don't really know if we really fixed it because we never tested it out. The electrical at the Cross Insurance is very problematic at this point because of the different phases of construction.
And it requires full power.
Requires full power, yes. We have a Cross Insurance Arena airlock, which would be pretty much closing up the Zamboni tunnel so that when a loading dock door opens up, all the cold air doesn't rush up through the loading dock and impact the temperature of the arena. We have, at the Cross Insurance Arena, rehiring their event staff after being out of work for 18 months. We have county staffing, hiring, and retention, and a portion of that money is increasing the jail corrections officers' salaries to make them more competitive for hiring purposes, as well as hiring a recruiter to not only recruit prospective candidates for corrections office positions, patrol division, and any other county job that we're having a tough time filling during these times. And we're actually interviewing later this week for that recruiter. We have a study furthering our knowledge on broadband. We have exploration of a child care program for the county. staff teaming up with the city of Portland. And then we have County ARPA Administration, where we are bringing over Sandy Warren from our CDBG office. She's the CDBG coordinator under Kristen, and Sandy is now going to be our compliance and audit manager, who is going to be responsible for chasing every penny of the $58 million in ARPA funds over the next 5 to 6 years. So those are the projects that we would be proposing for ARPA funds. We go to the next phase, and as the commissioners are aware, we had just over $1.6 million in lost revenue that we were able to carve off from our ARPA funds and move over to a special account. And we have projects to be funded. Do you have something?
Ted Vito's?
That is under a whole different bucket of money. These are just county projects.
Okay.
If you want to talk about homelessness, we can do that too. But let me just finish up here. Under the loss of revenue money, we have money going towards the jail fire alarm system. We have jail air handling units, 5 of them that are on the roof, that are not capable of taking on the larger filters as required by the CDC. We have the jail HVAC system Windows 7 conversion up to the Windows 10 platform. We have county cybersecurity system going in. We have at the Cross Insurance Arena performance side curtains. What we're seeing is that a lot of promoters are trying to get a larger venue to spread people out, but they want to have the quaintness of a smaller theater. So instead of just having the curtain behind the stage, they want to have curtains going up into the stands to block off the rest of the house. So instead of renting those a couple of times a month for these smaller shows, we would propose buying them and saving the costs over a year's time. And then the district attorney's computer hardware, allowing them to buy laptops and tablets so that they can make their employees more back and forth between home and work. So those are the projects that we're looking for approval for. Commissioners, if you want to talk about homelessness, we can. Staff had proposed.
But that's not part of this vote.
It's not part of this.
Okay, let's handle just this.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have any, Jim?
I move passage of item 21075, and I have a proposed amendment.
I'll second it.
There's been a discussion off and on now for a number of months at various times about an incentive program to express our appreciation to employees who have weathered through more than a year and a half of working under adverse circumstances and in difficult ways and arrangements, and also to encourage as many people as possible to get vaccinated against the disease we're all combating. So my proposal is that we authorize under the direction of the city manager, the staff, to propose a
County manager.
the county manager. I'm sorry. We can run the city too. For all apparently, that's an available job too. But to craft a vaccination encouragement incentive. I think we want to make a substantial financial commitment of something like no less than or no more than $3,000 per employee, both as a expression of thanks for those who have weathered through and to encourage all who have been vaccinated to receive such an incentive, and to encourage anyone who is not to be motivated to do that. And I'll just add that, we think that given everything that the state has been doing, everything that the national government has proposed, and our own recognition of how civil liability works and when and how we might come into the crosshairs of that if anything unpleasant might happen. You know, we think there'll be more and more pressure over time for people to get vaccinated and be safe. But we don't want to be heavy-handed about this, but we want to show our appreciation, I think would be the way I would think of it. So that's my proposed amendment to the list that we just went through on item 75.
Can I have a
I'll
second?
second the amendment.
Let's take the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
No.
I'll comment. Jim, I agree with you. I think it's a worthwhile program, and that to give recognition to those that want to make the environment in which they work and they run into their fellow citizens less risky, I think should be rewarded. So I'm totally on board. Seeing no further comments, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none, the amendment passes. Now for the main motion, which is to authorize the county manager to proceed with eligible county ARPA project funding. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Is unanimous. Well, good. Whew. That was quite a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the help and work on that.
Item 21076, award of sole source bid to Johnson Controls of Nashua, New Hampshire for $18,728 for the replacement of obsolete components of the fire alarm system at the jail and community correction center. This project will be funded with ARPA funds and classified under lost revenue. To the public, generally, it is my understanding, and generally we don't like to have these situations, but seeing as the material and the controls that presently there are proprietary, it only makes sense that the people that are making this repair continue on, because otherwise it would mean total replacement, which would not be cost effective. Could I have a motion? Could I have a motion for? Can I have a second? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Item 21077. I'd like a motion to award a sole source bid to Siemens of Scarborough, Maine for $72,206.28 for the replacement of the front end window 7 control system for the jail's HIVAC system.
So moved.
I'll second
Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Is there any other business, or does anybody have any comments for the good of the county that they wish to make at this time? Seeing none, comments from the county manager.
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. I do have a list. I can say, first item up, I want to thank the commissioners on considering the vaccination incentive. I think this will go a long way with staff in hopes of getting more vaccinated and reducing the impact of tracking in accordance with what the president has handed down through OSHA. And so I'm looking forward to working on and reporting back to you some guidelines that we'll run the program under in the coming weeks. One item I want to bring to your attention is that I received an email the other day from Bruce Flaherty. And you will remember Bruce Flaherty because Bruce touches base with us every year, usually in August, to give us a list of awardees under the Spirit of America Awards. And so we did not hear, maybe we did hear from Bruce last year, but we opted to postpone because of COVID. Well, Bruce is still up to it, and Bruce has submitted a list. The list includes the town of Baldwin, the town of Cape Elizabeth, town of Cumberland, town of Gray, town of Naples, town of New Gloucester, town of North Yarmouth, city of Portland, town of Raymond, town of Sebago, town of Yarmouth. And so we got winners under those communities. And I wanted to bring this to your attention this evening because I think we all can remember on the good times, 2019, we would have standing room only in this room for these type of awards. And we even had to break them up over 2 meetings because there were so many awards and so many people. And so I'd like to just raise this, and maybe if you could add your 2 cents on what you envision us recognizing these worthwhile volunteers that have been awarded under each community, and how we should go about doing it in 2021. I think we should do something, but my personal opinion, I don't think it's the right time to be inviting them into this building and into this smaller room, as it's pretty full and there's only 8 of us in here. So I just wanted to hear what the commissioner's thoughts are on how you would like to work through this over the next month or 2.
Yeah. Is it possible to do a Zoom ceremony where perhaps we're here and then we Zoom them in, or we're all remote? But at least it still honors the recipients in some capacity. The other option, I suppose, would be just to send a nice letter to all the winners from the county, or some type of recognition from the commissioner signing some type of declaration. Those are my thoughts.
Any other comments? Susan?
My thoughts would be, could we send with the letter or the certificate to each municipality, because some of them are doing with the in-person meetings, and some are doing over Zoom. So if we could maybe, come up with that, our certificate, and we can get them, to each one of the municipalities from us, and then, that they could hand them. Because I don't want to have to go to each individual town, and do an in-person meeting. How we could do the Zoom, but then again, how many people will Zoom? I don't know.
These are just ideas. Jim?
I could visit all of the towns in my district. And
Jim, you I don't know, Jim, you might.
they don't hold the in-person meetings, so last I heard. My impression would be we can certainly do something in terms of certificates and mail and that kind of stuff, and maybe something else to consider would be to do that, plus say once the pandemic has receded in ways that we think might be permanent, we may wish to have a small ceremony or something like that. That's
How about this? If we could get pictures of the individuals and what their award is, why not make up a slideshow and have it put on our website? Yeah. Saying congratulations, et cetera, along with sending out the certificates to the municipalities and let them present it to their awardees.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You could ask for a picture of the certificate being awarded, and you could do a video slideshow.
Yeah.
Commissioners could read the blurbs.
There you go.
We're all in agreement we should not do it live because of the current conditions.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, another year, things change, we may go back to, or create another format or whatever.
Oh, trust me, I think Bruce will be back next year, so we'll have a ceremony one of these years. We're not going to be immune from that.
How about at the Cross Insurance Arena? That's big enough.
Jim, do you have anything else?
I did have a sliver of paper floating around here with one other item, because I had already talked about the public health manager's position that we hired. But that third item is escaping me, and it's buried somewhere in one of these stacks of paper in front of me. So I'll forego and pass it on to staff. Thank you.
Probably was the most important thing for the meeting.
Yeah, it probably was.
Okay, county staff, Alex.
Just one comment I'd like to make. I'd really like to mention Team ARPA a little bit in terms of the performance report that they put out last month prior to the deadline. And that was Travis Kennedy, Kristen Stiles, and Catherine Cahoon, and Jim and myself. And just the work they put together, and I think that report is really something worth looking at. It was really quite impressive how it all came together and how good it looked, particularly compared to what a lot of the other folks were putting out there. I think that we really presented ourselves really well. The other more typical news
And trust me, Alex and I didn't have that much of a say in it. It was Catherine, Travis, and Kristen that did the bulk of the work. So thank you both for your work.
Yeah, I was kind of mentioning Jim and I, like, we were there.
They invited us to their meeting.
Yes, which in and of itself was great to watch. On more typical news, I'll have better budget projections for the current year next month once we get 3/4 of the way through the year. At this point in time, nothing, not sending any real warning bells yet. I think we're fine, but we'll wait another month before we start talking about that. That's all I got.
I'd like to make an addition to Alex's comments. Jim picked up on a moment's notice and made a report about what the county is considering doing for APRA to the Maine County Commissioners Association, and it was an excellent report. Have had a lot of good comments about it. In fact, the MCCA did do quite a good job in that, and there's a number of issues that they handled that I don't think I have necessarily heard here. One of the ones that really interested me was Dan Doran, is it from Oxford?
Donnie Dura?
Yeah. He apparently, with his background, was able to get the Treasury Department to agree that a lot of the communication equipment that he wanted was eligible, and has offered anybody that wishes to take advantage of what he learned to certainly give him a hand. But I mean, it was just that kind of a program, and Jim did an exemplary job. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Alex, do you have anything else? Travis.
So in the last 30 days, since roughly our last meeting, we've had 9 new public comments regarding ARPA funds. Almost every single one of them is about childcare. Most mention one specific project, so that project continues to do a good job advocating through its constellation of supporters, but it remains a top issue. Commissioner, we had talked earlier about the upcoming redistricting of the county commission seats. I think it's probably something that we should focus on a workshop maybe in October to dive into, but Jim and I have communicated with members of the legislative committee working on it in the Secretary of State's office, so we'll have more on that in the coming weeks.
Doesn't that have to take, doesn't that subcommittee report to the commission before, by October 1st?
We'll have communications with them.
Well, what I'm thinking about is that if you want the commission to hear and do about it, that we should have a meeting before that.
Well, the problem that we have is that we have made a request to the commission for data. They need to tell us what our districts look like.
Yeah, but I think they're under the gun of a legislative deadline of October 1st to have it turned in.
The 1st or 15th?
I think they went to the court system and got an extension on that. I was reading it in the minutes, and I saw that the law court gave an extension on it because of COVID and the delay of the census being rolled out.
Okay.
We're chasing it.
As long as we can have a meeting prior to, so we can have some effect. Yeah. Okay, good. Anything else? All right. Yep. Kevin, Sheriff.
Yeah, a few things happening. Early last week, we had 4 nursing staff from Armor that tested positive with COVID. And then on Friday, we had an inmate test positive. And over the weekend, on Saturday or Sunday, I got a call that his roommate, which was no surprise, also tested positive. So because it's more than 3, actually the nurses considered it an outbreak. And then we have 2 inmates. We've locked down the jail, and we're in the process of trying to find some partners to do some universal testing on all of the inmates and all of the employees. The unfortunate thing is pre-vaccinations, you had a lot of help, and now that we've turned to vaccinations and other things, trying to find help is rather difficult. So I did fortunately reach out to one of our jail board of visitors who owns a nursing or runs a nursing group, and they're going to try to help us out, but they've got issues with staffing. They're exhausted, and we're going to try to make that happen in the next couple of days. Been in close contact with the CDC, and like I said, there's no indication right now that any of our employees are positive on the COVID, which is good news, and we'll see where it goes from there.
How long is that projected shutdown?
The jail?
Yeah.
Well, we're hoping the pod where the inmates came from is completely shut down. And everybody else is well, but as soon as we can get some testing done, we're going to open the other pods. What we have done for the pod that the inmates came out of is we did the ID Now test that comes back within 10 or 15 minutes, and nobody else in the pod is tested positive. But, you know, the real test is the PCR test, so that's what we'll be working on. They happen to be a trustee pod, so it caused us to try to figure out how we staff the kitchen, because we use trustees for that. And we went to another pod. We're only using vaccinated inmates, and we're testing them on a daily basis before they go into the kitchen to try to make that, make sure that we're as safe as possible. So, Chapter 2 continues. Staffing, a little good news. I'd love to be able to say that the tidal wave came in. We've got some applications. We've got a couple of people that have chose to return, thanks to Jim's offer as well to maybe give a hiring bonus for those who come back. We've reached out to Hot Radio. We've advertised on that. It's a kid, teenager, young adult radio station. We've been running ads on that for the last 4 weeks. We're able to get on the Sea Dogs roster. They just had their last game Sunday. So we got about 16 games. Well, I shouldn't say 16. It was supposed to be 16 games, but because of COVID, I think they canceled 3 or 4, plus the rain. We've got the trailer going. The election signs are out. We're going to try to get those out this week. Some have gone out in various places. We wanted to pick some key places, like other correctional facilities close by, to put those signs up and stuff. So we've got those out, and we're going to put the rest of them out later this week using some of the VIPs. We have the trailer going. Met with the federal government probably a month ago, the chiefs, just to let them know what's going on. I'm in the process of working with the DA and the judges to try to let them know, hey, if you guys open up, try to give us a break because of the staffing and now the COVID. I reached out to the MCGA on the alert tests and had a conversation with them on August 27th, the director and the assistant director. They are working on an electronic test. They told me that have an electronic test whereby I can be at home tonight and decide I want to take the test and not have it proctored is a bit of an impossibility. Now they've worked with some colleges, and apparently the technology is not out there. So they are going to try to move it to an electronic version. We did have a conversation about the New American and the fairness of that, and I'm not really sure how we ended on that. because they're concerned about adjusting it too much may take away the fairness for the one that, the test that's out there now. So they heard the letter. I know that Commissioner Gordon's drafted another one, so maybe in a couple of weeks, now that it's been a couple of weeks, that gets them moving again. So more to come on that. Lastly, COVID, it's real. The patrol folks responded to at least 3 COVID-related deaths last week. In 2 cases, they did CPR on people that ultimately passed away, and then we found out they were positive, COVID positive, all within a 5-day period of time. So the crew is out there, and they're doing yeoman's work. One of the individuals, one of the deputies involved, was on both CPR missions, if you will, 5 days apart. So I've tried to explain to people I see that if you don't believe it, it's out there. And that's really all I have for right now, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate your reporting.
Yes.
Anybody? Yeah. Commissioners. Jim, you go first then.
I've had enough to say tonight already, so I'm good, thanks.
Susan.
I would just, that doesn't work, so I need yours. There. I would just like to thank the county, you know, for the good work with it they've been doing. I know this has been a rough, it's 18 months, and it doesn't, will look like that we are, you know, gonna be, we're done with it soon. I'd like to thank everybody for all the work that they've done with the budget. I was happy, you know, to see it come in, you know, with this, because I know at one point there was some talk about it being around 6%, if I remember right. And with Jim and Alex, you've done a great job, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for the dinner with Catherine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Neil Jamieson.
And I'll need that.
Buy some new mics.
Do we have money for new mics?
It's not the mics, it's the rechargeable batteries. So I just wrote a note here that we need 24 new rechargeable batteries. We'll order them tomorrow.
Just briefly, I would echo Sue's comments about the staff, executive staff and county staff members for doing incredible work during difficult times, both in terms of getting a pretty austere but a pretty good budget in place for us going forward, but more importantly, trying to put out all the fires during this process and pivot and being very creative in solving problems. So our thanks to all of you and all your hard work. Schools are open. Let's be safe out there on the roads. Be conscious of all the students out there. And let's also, I said this last meeting, but I'll say it again, let's also be conscious of being safe for COVID. If you haven't been vaccinated, give serious thought to go out there and being vaccinated. Yes, Cumberland County has 73% of its population vaccinated, but we still are seeing high rates in southern Maine. And COVID-19 is real, and it impacts all of us. And so be careful, wear a mask in all public places, whether you're vaccinated or not. And just be conscious of the fact that the citizen next to you, the child that's walking down your street, or your colleague at work might be vaccinated, and if you're not vaccinated, you might infect them. So let's be careful, let's be thoughtful, and let's all work hard towards getting to herd immunity by the end of the year. That would be a great goal. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I'll take a different tack here. First, I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for their great diligence during this time of COVID. I've been amazed at how much we've really paid attention to what's happening in the county and to the citizens. And I think my hat's off to you people. I really appreciate that. A comment that I'll make about the district, potential district realignments, et cetera. as I recall, in the last time that they did that, they also realigned or reestablished term dates on commissioners. If they could do it then, I wonder if they would consider rejiggering it again so that there's not so many commissioners being voted on at the same time, so we keep some sort of a constant roll of people that up for election. Last, and the sheriff made mention of it, I've written a letter to the executive committee of MCCA about the academy and some thoughts to consider presenting to them. And I did send a copy to MSA because it certainly is a part of a function that they're looking at, and I know that our sheriff wrote a great letter from his aspect as to how the academy might want to consider it. I tried to come in from a different way, and it was something that Commissioner Cloutier said about the language, and that people of the New Americans probably couldn't understand some of the questioning because of the cultural background, and did not, so because they didn't have that background, they couldn't read the question and understand what it was trying to ask, and that they need to take that into account, which I think is fair. We are also beginning to ask them, can't they make an exam that somebody can sit down and take at their convenience and get instant results? And part of that is, if you look at the exam as I understand it, it is aimed at the policing function of the sheriff's department or of our communities. It is not aimed at the correctional officers. And this is where we're having the problem. This is where we need their help so that we can get people hired, because the way the state law is functioning is that we can't hire somebody unless they get certified. So there's got to be ways to do that. And it's just to bring all those issues up to the top and let them know that, that we have concerns and they should be hearing it. Other than that, I appreciate the budget. Frankly, I think that that's a push in the right direction. I'm surprised that we're not asking for more. Not that I necessarily want to have the tax rate up, but I'm surprised. One of my concerns is that we've got these increases that have been forced upon us by the COVID function, and as a result, wages and more than wages, it's the compensation, the total compensation that's going up and is going to drive additional costs to the county outgoing. And COVID will not be funding that forever. So we're going to have to make that up, and it was part of the budget, showed how that we were going to try to lessen that impact. But what that's doing is eating into the normal part of a budget that we would have to do the ongoing things that we need to have done for the citizenry and to keep the county as the way we want it. And I hope that as we deliberate this budget, that we consider those things so that the county moves forward in a very functional manner in the future, because the more we can take care of the infrastructure, which is one of our basic charges, the less maintenance and operational costs we'll have, and ultimately in the long term, that lowers the tax rate for the citizen or does not impact it as much, because very seldom will you see it go down. And with that, I would say,
I have a question.
Sue.
Did we not take a vote to accept Jim's, our budget as the commissioners, and then don't we have to take a vote to turn that over to the finance committee?
That was the motion in the past. I made the motion, yeah.
To give it to the finance committee?
And refer it to the finance committee, which we had not by then created, but yes.
I must have missed that, okay.
Good. Thank you. But somebody keep an eye on us. Thank you, Susan. And with that, unless there, again, if there's any comments or questions or issues, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I declare we're adjourned.